right, so thank you everyone for joining us today for the second session of Attain Explains. And my name is Eric Sanford. I'm the Communications and Donor Development Specialist for Attain Housing. I am your host and moderator for the Attain Explains series. And so thanks for being an awesome supporter of Attain Housing and for, wanting to be here today to get to know our new executive director. So last time we discussed the rent debt crisis and the ongoing eviction issues that the folks that we serve are facing. And if you missed that session, you can find the whole thing on our YouTube channel and also on the blog section at attainhousing.org. But we thought that instead of discussing an issue that directly relates to Attain's work this time, that we thought it would be a good idea to take this opportunity to introduce our brand new executive director, because it's a big deal for us. You know, we're a small organization and changes in leadership don't happen all that often. So this seemed like the perfect opportunity, considering, that we're still not out in person all the time, still considering the ongoing pandemic. This seemed like a great opportunity for people to get to know Natalie a little bit and have a little chat. So we're going to start off with just a few questions between she and I, and then we'll open it up for Q&A with our audience. So be sure to be thinking of good questions that you want to ask. You can put them in the chat, Zoom chat channel, or you can just hold on to them and you can raise your hands when the time comes, and I can call on folks. So, and they can be questions about Attain's work, Natalie's background, her experience, or they can just be, fun get to know you questions. It's totally up to you. Within reason, of course. So, let's get started. So, you ready to go, Natalie? All right. So, Natalie, tell us, who are you? Tell us about your history.
Sure. So, my name, obviously, Natalie Reber, and I grew up in Colorado, and I went to college there. And I think that really formulated a lot of my attitudes and opinions and great love of the outdoors and conservation. And right after college, I came out here to Seattle, and I absolutely fell in love with the Pacific Northwest. And I've had that love affair continue for 20 plus years now. And I see a lot of similarities actually between the area where I was raised in Colorado and the greater King County area as well, both in values and beauty, and also those great outdoors and conservation as well. So while I still have family in Colorado, I definitely consider King County home. And a few years ago, actually a year and a half ago, I was lucky enough to get married, and my husband and I are still a little bit in awe and definitely grateful that we were able to do that before the world kind of shut down. And we had both a wedding here in Seattle and another one in India over on the other side of the world right before COVID hit. So that was an interesting experience, as well as, an incredible and amazing one. And we've carried those memories through with us this past year and a half, definitely. So yeah, those are kind of some of the highlights. I'm also the youngest of 4 children and a lifetime athlete. And I'll talk a little bit more about how those things impact my attitudes and leadership style.
Nice. What were the sports you played?
I was a swimmer, and I have played soccer from the age of 4 until today.
Nice. Awesome. All right.
A little bit of softball here and there.
Sweet. Love softball. Okay, so how about tell us about your nonprofit leadership experience and how it led you to Attain Housing.
Sure. So for the 10 years before Attain, I spent as the ED in a organization in South King County that provide shelter to homeless women. And before that, I spent time in organizations that work in public education reform and support, and working to prevent violence in our communities. And through all of those jobs, I worked throughout King County and sometimes Washington State, and really was able to kind of work within and develop through just our wonderful community of nonprofit workers and leaders, and really the network that we have here. And so those things really helped develop my experience as well, just kind of the coalition building side of the work. Yeah. The housing piece, I think, is really where my passion is. And I think obviously that's a natural connection. I like to sort of think of it in terms now of, we often would hope that our clients in shelter would move on to transitional housing and then permanent housing along that pipeline. And I kind of think it's fitting that now I have moved along that pipeline as well.
Awesome. All right, how about you tell us about your leadership style and your philosophy as a leader?
Sure. So this is kind of where my sport background comes into play. I think that having spent so much time in team sports, that has led to a very team-focused approach. And it's where the beginning of my leadership experience started. So I really like to take that team-oriented approach into everything I do. The job of an executive director is both managing up and out to the board and the community, but it's also managing down to staff and volunteers. And so for me, I like to try and find a very happy medium and make sure that I'm considering all of those constituencies, whether I'm making a decision or just thinking in broader terms strategically about the organization. So, what I kind of will choose to do is get as much information as I can from all of those constituencies and make sure everybody has input into whatever it is that we're working on, whether it's, like I said, a longer term vision or strategic plan, or just in terms of how we run the office and what the structure looks like. So it's a very team-oriented approach. But I also, as I mentioned earlier, we have this incredible network of organizations and professionals in King County. And I really like to rely on colleagues for best practices and emerging trends in leadership, as well as I have a ability to take advanced courses and trainings, and I make sure that I do that in kind of all areas of leadership, especially the more emerging, important areas that we're focusing on in King County, like racial equity and, how we really work together to address this homeless issue. So I always like to have the information from both our community and, nationwide trends as to best practices. And I'm constantly reading articles and trying to stay on top of that as well.
Awesome. What was a leader or a coach or a boss that you had growing up and throughout your career? Was there anyone that you can think of off the top of your head that you kind of hold up as a good example of leadership that you try to emulate?
I mean, so many. There's never just one, but there's a couple of great examples that I think about. One is actually a restaurant where I worked when I was in college, and they were a very successful restaurant model. And I really think the main reason was because they put so much confidence and value into their staff. And unlike a lot of other food service, or what you can sometimes find in food service, where maybe the workers are a little bit taken for granted, they were really front and center with the staff. They paid a much higher wage, but they also had a lot involved in staff appreciation and put some decision making into the staff hands. And I think I responded to that, definitely being a young worker myself, but I also just saw the bigger picture. The employees stayed longer. There was a long list of people that applied to work there. The customers were happy and everybody was making a lot of money. So that was an important lesson for me.
Nice. Okay, well, let's go ahead and open it up for questions from our attendees. Please introduce yourself and give Natalie maybe a quick background on your history or connection with Attain Housing, if possible, before you ask your question, and we'll just go from there. So does anybody? Okay, I see Rob put a question in the chat here. He's curious as to what restaurant that was, because Rob also worked in the restaurant industry.
So it's called the Rio Grande, and it's in Colorado. When I worked there, I worked at the branch that's in Greeley, Colorado, which is where the University of Northern Colorado is based. And they were the third restaurant. Prior to that, they had Fort Collins and Boulder, which is where Colorado University and Colorado State University are located. Now they have, this was back in the 90s, now they have like 10 of them across Colorado. And what's funny is when I worked there, their big thing was a $4 margarita, which was great for a waitress because you typically got that extra $1 tip. Now those margaritas are $10 and they're still selling them. Nice. I highly recommend it if you're ever in Denver.
Great. Rob, did you have any other questions go along with that?
No, but as long as we're doing introductions.
Yeah.
Hi, Natalie, nice to know you. Rob Scarver. I am a 30-year recovering restaurant employee, and now I've been working with Mike Connolly at Windermere Central for about the last 3.5 years. And not long into my tenure with that office, I got to meet Kathy Fleming when she came to present at our office to let us know the works that Attain Housing was doing. And I felt a really good connection to the charter that Attain is aspiring to. So one thing led to another, and I just started pitching in as a volunteer wherever I saw a good fit for my skill set and Attain's needs.
It's great to meet you.
Thanks, Rob. Okay, who else has a question? You can feel free to just hop off mute and just go for it.
Hi, Natalie. I don't have a question. I just want to welcome you on board. Really excited to have you part of our partnership and all that Attain does. So my name is Mike Connolly. Rob and I work together. My wife and I own Windermere Real Estate in Kirkland on Market Street.
How's the new headquarters coming along? It's almost done, right?
3 weeks away, Eric. We're getting close. Yeah, getting close.
Awesome. Yeah, every time I drive by, it's just like looking closer to being done. Looks great. Great. All right. Who else has a question? Looks like Dave.
I actually don't have a question. I just wanted to introduce myself. I am from Windermere, Issaquah. I'm the branch manager there. And I have, Mike, you were foundation manager at one time, right?
The foundation
East Side manager?
Yeah, for several years.
Yeah, so Mike had that position, and then Lou Mason had the position, and he's retired, so I've taken it over for about a year now. And we are actively involved with raising funds to donate to different organizations on the East Side, and only the East Side. And one of them is Attain. And so I will be, and my rep, Jeanette, we have 12 reps with the different Windermere East Side offices that meet regularly to decide on how to disperse funds that have been raised. So as Natalie and I will probably be introduced again, or Carol, and then Jeanette, the rep that contacts Attain. So anyway, I'm here, just hanging out.
That is so
Awesome.
great. Thank you, all three of you, for being here and for all of the continued support from Windermere and your various offices. I can't say enough about Windermere. My former org also received support from the Sandpoint office. And I just love how you connect your employees to on the ground, you know, with our org, it's literally hands in the dirt opportunities, as well as obviously the funds that we need so much. So it's just, I love your model for volunteerism. I can't say enough about it. And I'm thrilled to meet all of you.
Thank you very much. Steve, good to see you.
Good to see you too. I'm sure you got a punch list as long as your arm.
So true.
All right. Anybody else have a question so far? Feel free to hop in. Jen?
Hi, Natalie. Jen Boone, she, her pronouns. I recently joined the Human Services team with the city of Kirkland. Before that, I actually was working at Attain Housing, so worked really closely with Carol and other folks at Attain for the last couple years. So happy to have you on board and to work with you in my new role and your new role. I'm curious, you mentioned racial equity and kind of the work that's going on in King County, and I'd love to hear more from you, kind of what that lens looks like for you and your work, and then specifically how it's related to housing.
Sure, those are both really big questions. I will talk about it as much as I can, and then I would love to get together with you offline anyway at another time just to talk more about our works and all of that good stuff. But for me personally, I was really lucky to be introduced to the race and social equity decision-making tool that was implemented by King County more than a decade ago. And that's because I served on a county commission. And so I've kind of always taken that tool into my own work within the organization that I'm working in. What that looks like for Attain itself, I don't know yet, because we have just begun to embark upon kind of what it is going to look like. I can say that it impacts all of my decision-making and everything that I do. Being a lawyer by training, I also chose to go to Seattle University in part because they have a social justice focus, and that very much aligns with just my own personal commitment and where I wanted to focus my education. So those kind of values together help me navigate. I think there are some ways that we are already utilizing these tools in our organization without even knowing it as a staff. And together, you know, we're going to start, again, kind of realizing what those are. But you know, 3 weeks in, I can't necessarily say how it's affected my leadership thus far, other than to say it just is an integral part of who I am and how I lead and the way I make decisions. And I can't speak for our board, but one of them is here, and I hope that that value is part of the reason why I was chosen.
Great, thanks for sharing. I really appreciate it.
Thanks, Jen. All right. I have a question. So one thing that we are kind of working on for our fall fundraiser campaign and week of giving that's coming up in September is talking to people how they're rebuilding, healing, etc. From the pandemic. How does that relate to your goals and your work at Attain, Natalie?
Yeah, I think one of the things just to kind of be honest and frank about is that, we're not through it yet.
Mm-hmm.
And especially for the communities that we serve and our clients and the folks that our stable home program is serving, they certainly are not through the effects of the pandemic. And so really for us, it's going to be a question of how do we implement some best practices around what we have been doing and what's worked really well and what we have some outcomes around. And where do we make the changes that we need to make so that we can ensure that recovery across our communities, the communities we serve within the organization. So, and I think that there will be input from both clients and staff as we work our way through this and make some sort of organizational decisions around it. But I think the acknowledgement that the pain is still ongoing and there is a lot of uncertainty around the eviction moratorium, the amount of monies that people owe. For us as an organization, just the reality that we have rental loss on the housing side, and how do we, as an organization, recover from that? So these are all discussions that are going to be ongoing. And like I said, I think nothing's been decided because we're still not out of it.
Mm-hmm.
Toby.
Yep.
So
Hey, Toby.
this is more of a question about long-term rather than short-term. And Attain has traditionally been a transitional housing provider where people who have been homeless kind of get back on their feet and they move on to permanent housing. But governments in particular seem to be leaning more towards funding permanent low-income housing or supportive housing with less of an emphasis on transitional housing. Do you think that will result in Attain having to change the way that we function? Or do you think there's still a place for transitional housing, even if we have to raise all the money to fund it ourselves?
I think both can be true. And I think that's likely where we will land. I think again, my assessment coming in and getting, reading as much as I can and getting there as quickly as I can. I think what we do in transitional housing is incredible and we show great success at it. Mm-hmm. So there's also a question of, are we just describing what we do wrong? Because the housing is owned by us. It is permanent. There is a program involved, but it's not, and it's time limited, but we include extension and it's very long time period, up to 2 years. And there's leases involved. So some of it is maybe we're just not talking to the funders properly about what we're doing. And we are providing wraparound services in so much that we're providing case management and outside referral for all the needs that our clients have. Sometimes we're providing subsidies, it looks like, even for childcare and food and all kinds of resources. So on the housing side, I think, there's flex, and then of course we do have permanent residents. So those King County managed units are permanent. Mm-hmm. Supportive housing. So there's that. And then, yes, I think that we need to look at being flexible in our next as we build and as we grow and as we expand, because that's where, and not just from our cities and county, but the federal government is where the real money is. And if we want to look at that, you know, we do have to show some flexibility to fit into what they want us to do. And that might be a longer term discussion and project. And then also we have this incredible stable home program that has built out mostly as a result of the pandemic, but is going to continue to be a massive need in our community. So how do we continue to provide that program, and where does that fit in with the affordable housing? These are, you know, obviously big questions for the board and the organization and our community, all of you, to weigh in and help us navigate, as well as talk to your decision makers. One of them is on this call. We don't need to talk to him about it, but at the county, at the state, at every level, to say, look, there's not a one. Part of what I think has gotten us into some of these problems is this every 5 or 10 years, this new one solution fits all approach, and everybody needs to stop what they're doing and start doing something else. And there's not a lot of recognition for small programs like ours, who have been successful for decades, turning out good outcomes, and don't have the resources or ability to like make this huge pivot in services to fit the funder. So there also has to be some flexibility, I think, coming from our government funders around permanent supportive housing and what that actually means. And I think Jen will back me up on this. That definition is different at the county and it's different at the state, and it's not codified in law the way that some definitions are. So like I said, it's storytelling and us telling our story to decision makers, and then us also making sure that we're reading the regulation correctly and not missing out because we misunderstand what it is.
Thanks.
Is it all right if I ask a question?
Of course.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, I'm Linda Hillisheim. I'm on the board of Eastside Interfaith Social Concerns Council, and Attain Housing has come to many of our meetings, and I believe you've been a member. But we're doing a session on affordable housing at our session in July on the 13th. We're working with maybe Plymouth Housing and Lehigh a little bit, but I wanted to outreach to Attain to let you know we're doing it because we appreciate what you're doing, and I would love to get in contact with whoever you think would be right, just to talk about that as soon as I can. And welcome.
Thanks.
Great. Yes, you can contact myself or Carol about that, and we can figure that out for you. And you can our emails are on the website, but it's Eric@Attain Housing or Carol@AttainHousing.org. So easy enough. Okay. Any other questions out there? I have one if no one else does. All right. So Natalie, tell us about you said you've been on staff for about 3 weeks now, give or take. And what has your first 3 weeks been like? Has it been like drinking from a fire hose? Are you coming up for air yet? How's it going?
It's been great, actually. And yes, there's just so much to learn and so many people to meet, but everyone has just been wonderful and so welcoming. I can't say enough about just the community that has been built and that supports this organization. It's incredible. So far, everything has just been great. You know, any new job has a lot of challenges, but for me, it's mostly just I'm a kind of a deep dive type of person. So it's like, I'm in a lot of rabbit holes of excellent, amazing information, and I need to be there, but it's hard to dig out and make sure I'm getting those emails answered and other reports filed as I'm just learning as much as I can. So yeah, it's been great.
Awesome.
It's also interesting to start a job in a virtual, mostly virtual environment. I have been going into the office a few days a week, and that's been great for me. Also, there's, just more information in there in case I need it. So there are hard copies still in the world of things that are good to have access to. But it's been really nice to get out of my house and to get out of our home office and to get away from my husband, who I love dearly, but we've had this extended 1.5 COVID honeymoon, and it's time to spend some time apart. So those things have all been really nice, kind of like building in some normalcy back into the work life. So yeah.
That is nice. Yes. Being able to do a little remote work, a little in-person work, because when you're at the office, you just tend to absorb little things that wouldn't come through maybe virtually. I'd be like, oh, that's how that thing works. So there's all kinds of little things like that that really, when you start a new job, it's like those are kind of key to have those kind of hands-on moments. So yeah, I'm glad that we're able to do some in-person stuff these days. So another question for you, because you mentioned your law background. I'm kind of curious about this myself, is like, what are some ways that you find yourself utilizing your law background and knowledge throughout your nonprofit work experience?
Well, first and foremost, like, whether this is a good thing or a bad thing, I kind of have that, risk management piece at the front of my head all the time, and that's just kind of, I don't know if that's just thinking like a lawyer or in part thinking like an executive director, like always think through to the worst case scenario. But in addition to that, I think really, again, and this part of it is a Seattle U education, I think, really examining not just how something might apply, but what the intent is, both in its application and its result of a policy or a procedure, or even the way you address someone. And I think that thinking really came from my education. And in addition to that, just really seeing things from all sides and making kind of a good argument for the side that I don't necessarily agree with. And that, I think, makes every leader way more diplomatic and a better decision maker all around. So those are definitely things that I take. And then, there are times when I think it can be not necessarily detrimental, but can be kind of tough to handle, mostly with my marriage, where I've got to win that argument. So.
I'm sure your husband appreciates that aspect.
Natalie, I've got a quick question for you. Just in your 3-week deep dive here, do you have any forecasts with regard to getting back to community suppers? Will we see a fall luncheon? How's that shaping up?
So the fall is going to be virtual again. We definitely have some really fun and exciting plans for making it, feel a little more connected. But at this point, we just felt as a community, it wasn't responsible to plan an in-person event. And I think, we're hearing a real loss around the community supper and a real desire to get back to it from folks like yourself. So I think as soon as we can kind of work it out safety-wise and logistically, Eric, maybe I'll kick that to you for further.
Sure. Yeah. So as I'm the person that ran the community supper program from staff perspective, as many of you know, and yeah, personally I've really missed that part of the job of every Tuesday evening of spending 2 hours over at Holy Spirit Lutheran Church and getting to know all the regular attendees, just folks from that neighborhood. And just anyone's welcome to come and have a free meal and everything. So it's a great program, and I look forward to being able to restart it. We're hoping to do that at some point this year. We just don't really know quite when yet. We'll work directly with Holy Spirit to make sure that they are totally comfortable with opening their doors again to the community in that capacity. So yeah, to be determined, but fingers crossed for not too much longer here. So
Great, thank you.
yeah. Let's see. So, oh, go ahead.
Oh no, I'm signaling somebody outside. Sorry.
Okay, that's all right. So I wanted to ask a question to all our attendees about what advice you have for Natalie as she becomes a bigger part of the East Side community, because she like myself lives in Seattle. I grew up in Pierce County, but I joined the Attain Housing staff about 3 years ago now, and since then, having not before that spent a ton of time in Kirkland, I've learned so much about the East Side community and about Kirkland and Bellevue. That's really been very enriching for me. And so what's some advice that most of you have been on the East Side for many years, or for your whole lives? What advice do you have for Natalie as she becomes a part of the East Side community? Feel free to hop in.
From my perspective, you have a great organization that it's not broke. In my opinion, there's really nothing to fix except for to continue growing it. And my recommendation is to really listen to the staff that you're now working with. I think that they all have a great moral compass and a lot of really good insight into the workings of the team.
Thank you, Rob. Anybody else have any advice from any lifelong East Siders? No, nobody? Favorite?
I'll say something.
Okay, go ahead.
As someone who also lives in Seattle and has now started working on the East Side, I have learned the value of relationships and how deep relationships go on the East Side. And I don't think that that's unique to the East Side. I think that's in, whatever space you're working in. But, and I really value that. And just transitioning into a new role in the last couple of weeks, being able to see familiar faces and relationships that I've already built, I realize how much change we can really have if we continue to build community and work together. And I'm sure you already know that, but that's just something I've been reflecting on the last couple of weeks.
Thanks, Jen. Real quick, what's everyone's favorite downtown Kirkland restaurants? Recommend some for Natalie and for staff. Anyone have any favorites that are open these days?
Oh yeah, I was gonna say Hector's, but oh well.
Oh yeah, rest in peace.
I'm going to say Met Market.
All right. Get that giant chocolate chip cookie from Met Market. That's a favorite for sure.
Daru Market as well.
Oh yeah, Daru. That place is really good.
Does everybody understand how the Human Services Division in Kirkland kind of works with our nonprofit organizations? Jen? I just want to give a shout out to you because I think it's such an unknown piece of government, and it's a piece that works really well for our communities. So
Yeah, you're putting me to the test on my pitch and see how much I've learned in the last 6 weeks. The city of Kirkland, as well as several other cities on the east side, work together to provide funding for agencies, but specifically for the city of Kirkland, we really try to be seen as more of a collaborator. So being able to work to, if there's a new program that agencies are interested in bringing on board, being able to meet with them and figuring out if that's something we can work with them on, seeing where there's current needs in the community. One of the things that I think we've seen as an evolution within this department, it used to just be one person, and now we're a team of 4. And so we've really started to shift from just funding every other year to several agencies on the east side and in Seattle, as well as really being able to start to provide resources and services, or not services, but resources to connect folks to services in the community. And so, being able to provide the resource of Attain Housing, for moving costs, while also being able to support and sustain those programs with folks like Windermere and other funders. So we really see ourselves as a collaborator and being able to, connect with folks like Natalie to see how we can meet the needs of the community members and also adapt to the changing needs that we're seeing as a result of a pandemic, or just as Kirkland evolves over time.
thank you so much.
Thanks, Jen.
And I want to give a plug for for volunteers, because all of our commissions, both in Kirkland and if you're a Bellevue or an Issaquah resident, they all are mostly volunteer led and driven, and take community volunteers, especially during funding years, to help them make those decisions and make recommendations. So it's a great way to be involved in your community. Just a little plug there.
Awesome. All right, I have some fun questions. We'll just go through these real quick here, rapid fire as possible. So if you had to pick one, Natalie, pancakes or waffles?
I gotta go pancakes.
All right.
With fruit, with whipped cream.
Nice. What about syrup?
I'll take syrup if there's no fruit or whipped cream, depends.
Uh-huh. Gotcha. All right. Is a hot dog a sandwich?
I got to pull the lawyer card on this and say that by definition, a sandwich is 2 pieces of bread or a loaf split down the middle with something in between. Therefore, a hot dog is a sandwich.
All right. So what are what is your desert island food of choice, beverage, music, and movie?
So I have to be practical here and say, if I'm on a desert island, I need some like regular filtered water. So I'm going to go with that. And then growing up in Colorado, I have an affinity for Southwest Mexican food. Definitely my mom's green chili, if I have to be specific, but really anything from the Mexican or Tex-Mex genre, I think will carry me through on a desert island. So music-wise, I'm pretty open. I love all kinds of music. It's been interesting being married to an Indian. He has introduced me to classical Indian music, which is like a whole new and very different kind of music, but it's interesting and very cool. I would say probably like Dave Matthews or Foo Fighters or something in that kind of not modernish rock era. Mm-hmm. And yeah, I don't know if you asked favorite movie, but I was thinking about that recently, and it's, I don't really have a favorite movie, but I find that if A Few Good Men is on, which let's face it, it is all the time, I will stop and watch it. And I have no idea why that is. My brother was a Navy man, so I don't know if like that influenced me somehow, but yeah, and it's a legal drama, of course, so that probably too. But I also love like any sport related film, and especially A League of Their Own, which is, you know, another one of those that if I see that it's on, I'll stop and watch it no matter where it is in the film. And Singles, which was filmed here in Seattle, and the movie Boys in the Hood, which came out the year I went into high school and had a big impact on me, both because of its pop culture and the message, but the music. Yeah.
A fun fact about A League of Their Own, it's the highest grossing baseball movie of all time. That's one of it's definitely my favorite baseball movie as well.
Wow. That's so cool. I didn't know that.
Yeah. All right, folks, let's open it up again. Any other questions out there? They can be fun ones. They don't have to be serious work-related ones.
I love A League of Her Own too. I watch it many times.
Oh, nice. Yeah, it's such a good, well-made, feel-good kind of movie, but also like really says a lot within the kind of popcorn nature of it. You know, it's so good.
Natalie, do you have a favorite soccer team?
Well, the women's U.S. national team is my favorite soccer team. But I have been in fact, last night I had to go through and delete a bunch of programming out of my Xfinity recorder because I've been recording both Copa America and the Euro Cup that's going on right now. So I've got just major matches that I need to watch. So yeah, I tend to like kind of tournament soccer, and then I really enjoy watching the women's team and our Reign team, which I unfortunately haven't been to since they moved down to Cheney Stadium, but maybe this year we'll make it back down. When they were over here in Memorial Stadium, it was a quick walk, and we were season ticket holders, so. Hoping to get back to some of those matches too, and Sounders, of course.
Awesome.
Yeah. I'm pretty non-discriminatory when it comes to supporting sports. I like to support the home team wherever I am, and that can be said for everything except for NFL football. And then I'm basically a single team supporter, and that would be the Denver Broncos. So. Sorry, hometown Seahawk fans. That's the one there where I draw the line.
Hey, you know, it's that you got to respect where you came from, and you know the respect the loyalty and devotion. I totally get that.
No, but I do love the Seahawks. I think it's been fun. I've been here, 20 plus years, and it's been fun to watch them really grow a great franchise and fan base, and and a better stadium, obviously.
Yes. Who else? Any other questions out there? Any other like words of advice or encouragement? Things that anyone else wants to put out there? Just like what are some things that perhaps drew you to Attain Housing's the caring community built around Attain Housing? What do you when you talk to other people out in the community, what do you tell folks about Attain Housing?
Are you asking me, or are you asking our participants?
I'm asking everybody. That's okay.
So you want us to share our elevator pitches, in other words?
Exactly. You got it, Toby.
So my elevator pitch is that Attain Housing helps people who have been homeless become housed and helps people who are housed stay housed. And that's a short elevator ride.
Yeah, that's it. Awesome. Thanks, Toby. Anybody else?
Well, I just want to say that I feel so welcome in this community, and even just the few outreach meetings that we've had. For example, Carol and I met with PCC yesterday, who are opening their additional store up this fall. And, you know, they just have a real commitment to community connection and really aligning their corporate social responsibility within the community where they are. And, you know, I think like Windermere, I'm finding that in a lot of our locally based businesses and just everyone that does come together to support not just Attain, but I think Jen, you probably found that at Imagine as well. And, you know, I think together we're really starting to figure out the pieces. I know it feels overwhelming and slow. In some parts of the county, our homeless issue is very visible. Like where I live, and in some parts of Bellevue, we're seeing a lot of tents. But I also see some real progress happening both at our city levels and at the county, and real thoughtful longer term response that is human focused and centered in what people need to fully recover from the trauma of being homeless. And Attain plays a very important part in that role. And I think that the work that we do is so important, and it really is saving people's lives, especially some of the eviction prevention that we've done this past year. So I'm really proud to be here and of the work that I've been a part of just for this 1 month. And I thank you all for being a part of this important community and the work that you're each doing as individuals and in your work in your businesses to help keep us afloat and also to help keep us moving forward and with your ideas and your values and where you would like to see us
Awesome. Thank you, Natalie. Thanks for being open to doing this and doing this get to know you session, and being open and honest with everybody about your pancake preferences and whatnot, and also all of the actually important stuff. We're all excited to have you on board as staff, and excited to see where you take us in the future. So with that, we'll start wrapping up here. If you're looking for ways to engage with Attain Housing, we are doing volunteer work parties at our housing properties every second Tuesday and fourth Thursday of the months, typically. If we can arrange for other dates if need be for larger projects. So let folks know about that. And then also, as mentioned before, our fall fundraiser, Week of Giving, coming up in September. We're working on lots of great video content to be sharing with you guys, and there'll be more details coming on all of that soon here. So thank you, thank all of you for joining us today on this session. And unless anybody has any final questions, we'll go ahead and wrap it up. Last chance. 3, 2, 1. All right. Well, thank you so much, Natalie. That was awesome. Really appreciate it.
Thanks, everybody.
All right.
Really great to meet you all. Look forward to working with you each.
Nice to meet you.
All right. You guys have a great weekend. Everybody stay cool.
Thank you.